Please don't air any of this, Brad.
All right, we ready? You hitting it? Tell me when we're rolling. We've been rolling. God damn.
We're Googling over here.
All right.
To Nerd Sports now, people.
Exactly.
Look out. Do you fear death?
Oh, one of the greatest lines of all time.
I've got a job to it. I've got a job to it.
Kind of like whistles at her, so Dad looks over and the guy's going. And Dad's like, I got the fuck out of there. I was like, oh man, you didn't partake? I thought that was part of the mountain biking community, that y'all just went out there and had sex together in your tight shorts. But literally making me 30 sides of red sauce. Imagine. He just hangs it back up.
So that's what I was doing wrong the first time.
That's what you were doing wrong.
Big Pharma is turning the frogs gay, and it's coming after your kids. And they're going to make them incredibly happy. Infowars.com.
Listened to so much. Are you...
It'd take days to look at everything in here. It's super cool, man.
A lot of this stuff is stuff I've had since I was a kid. It was in storage for a long time, and then COVID happened, and I was working out here, and just slowly. When we got the house built in 29, we lived out here, of course, until we got the house built, and right around that time that we got the house built, the band was talking about playing again. And so I said, well, let me just keep that as a studio, because we're going to make it a garage. And she was like, yeah, do whatever. And so we set it up, just set the gear up, the PA system up. We got together like 2 times, and too much, we didn't really have a goal to work toward anyway. We were just trying to get together and jam. But it was one of those things that at the time didn't really pan out. So I just started work. COVID happened. I started working out here and started putting things up.
Yeah.
That's
cool, man.
You get used to it, seeing it every day, but then it's like
somebody that's never been in here. It's wild. Yeah, it's super cool.
A lot of I had 2 grandparents pass, 2 grandfathers passed around that time too. So incorporated a lot of their stuff into here, which is cool.
I'm doing that in my shop too. I think I've told you my shop is similar to this. It's kind of.
I've seen some videos. Is that what you were all jamming at? And stuff?
It's all purpose, like it's a shop and it's a jam spot, but I have lots of stuff for my grandparents in that space too, and just all things I love. I'm trying to put on the wall. I'm making these. Lots of people think it's super weird, but like making all these collages, like big pictures of like my kids growing up and all these things, and like if I do a fun trip with friends or something, like I'll put something together and put it up there. I just really try to remember all those great things,
Yeah. Well, are you a sentimental guy?
Super.
So I
think you are too.
Oh, to a fault. Yeah. Almost to a fault to where I was a hoarder. I don't think you saw it before I started the pod, because my sister had moved in with us for a little bit, and so I partitioned it off into rooms. She was living out here. And so I had curtains. I mean, it was a maze.
Yeah. And
just stuff, junk. I couldn't even get to it all. I took... I couldn't even tell you how many loads I took to Goodwill.
Yeah.
Just junk, just stuff I didn't need that wasn't important. Kind of, you can let it go a little too far.
Yeah.
It was when my grandpa died. It was like, I want to take everything, whether it was important or not.
Yeah. My mom just yesterday asked me if I wanted something that my grandpa made. He made everything out of red cedar.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, you know anybody that want this? And I was like, did Grandpa make that? And I was like. She's like, yeah. I said, I'll take it. She said, I knew you'd say that. I took it home, put it in my shop.
It's funny growing up when, the way this is, it's kind of like their house was. I mean, their house was just the walls covered from floor to ceiling with trinkets and knickknacks and little things. And I used to always ask them stories behind stuff. And I wish I'd asked them more. It's part of the reason I started doing the podcast. Man, I wish I had done something like this when my grandparents were still alive and had a record of it. I've had so many great talks with people that, like you and I, haven't ever sat down for 2 hours and just chat. You get to see people for 5-10 minutes at a gathering.
It's how are you, same stuff,
and it's really sad. And I was like, man, I don't want that to happen to everyone else in my life. Why do you think you're sentimental?
Well, I mean, you've seen me on social media lately, like trying to do the same thing you're doing, kind of with the podcast.
Yeah, it's
like,
awesome. I love reading about it.
I really feel like I'm really driven to live every day. Like if I die tonight or tomorrow, like I did what I was supposed to that day, and so I think that's a lot of it for me. But anything that brings back good memories, I like to keep around.
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing that you're doing, just kind of acknowledging the people in your life that are important to you.
Yeah. I was thinking about, like, most people say these things at people's funeral.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because they don't get to hear it.
Yeah.
Do it while they're alive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to, like, say that these people I'm talking about are getting ready to die. It's not that. It's just like we just never know, any of us, when it's our time. So I want to say it today,
That's true. Yeah, we never know.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, though, because that's absolutely something I'm trying to do and reconnect with people. I hadn't seen Jason Stillwell in almost 20 years. I'd seen him a couple times, and now, we're hanging out on the regulars.
It's so cool, man.
And it's funny how you can go. Well, Durham's another great example. We hadn't played a show since like 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd been over 10 years since we'd played a show.
Mm-hmm.
And you get into a couple of rehearsals, and it's like you never stop.
Yeah.
It just, even the rhythm of it came together really tight.
Oh,
we were all rusty.
It was so much fun.
Man, that was fun. I wish we'd had more time, but gosh, it gets so hectic.
Yeah.
I'm working a full-time job raising kids, but I'm glad we got to do the one we did. You sounded great.
Thanks, man.
That was a lot of fun.
It's fun. It was just fun to get to jam with you, and those guys are so talented. And I'm not, I don't look at myself as an amazing bass player or anything, but it's just fun. I just enjoy music.
It is fun. And to do a song from the 90s, that was kind of a 90s heavy set. We had a bunch of 90s songs that came out. That was the most fun. I don't think I really enjoyed playing Plush. It's a great song, but it's just not a great live.
I loved it.
Did you?
I loved when y'all played Plush. Yeah.
Awesome. Good to hear. It's it's kind of a slower one to play. It's got a real slow groove to it. It just didn't feel like a live banger.
Yeah, I liked it.
What about the Foo Fighters? You like the Foo Fighters?
I do. Yeah. Y'all didn't play any of that, though,
we
did
played.
you? What'd you play?
We played Times Like These.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. I did like that a lot.
That's
I just don't remember that one. Yeah. Foo Fighters is tough to play. Their drummer was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
Do you know, how did he die?
I don't think they've said, but I think the idea is probably a drug overdose, I think.
That's usually what it is. I don't know if you listen to any of Avenged Sevenfold. I know their drummer died early of a...
I know them. I don't listen to it, but,
But your kids are playing now.
Yeah. Henry and Charlie, the young ones.
Okay. How many do you have total?
4, plus a bonus.
Okay.
So we got Addison. She just turned 18 this past weekend, which blows me away.
That's wild.
And I'm that's the most sentimental thing I have probably. I'm like, dude, how do I capture all these moments of her?
That's hard to even imagine.
Yeah.
Well, Max is 14. I mean,
it's just
he was 4 when we moved out here.
Yeah.
So she's your oldest.
18. Silas is 13. Henry and Charlie will be 10 in just like a month. And then Lola is my bonus. She's 18 years old. She's from Poland, exchange student that lives with us.
Okay. How's that going?
Good. This will be her 3rd year to live with us.
No kidding.
And
I didn't know you're doing that.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. We didn't go looking for it. We just were aware that she kind of needed a place to go because of who she was staying with. It just wasn't the perfect fit. So we offered to take her and thought that'd be a really fun opportunity to.
And how long ago did you say you started this?
This school year, we're starting the third full school year. And she's a senior. She's 18. She's a senior.
Taking a teenage girl into the home. That's a brave adventure you endeavored on.
Yeah. And it's gone really well for the most part. Yeah, we love her and try to treat her just like our kids. And I call her my bonus daughter. And she is an amazing basketball player.
Oh, yeah?
And that's the main reason she came over here. She wants to play basketball in the U.S. And so she's playing at Providence Academy this year. And then next year she's going to play at Pitt State. It's a D2 college in Kansas.
What an opportunity.
Yeah. That's really fun. And so we're happy because she'll be pretty close to us. We can go watch her play still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. Man, it's got to be hard for... I haven't even tried to confront, like, talking about sentimentality. Like, I'm already dreading that moment when the kids move out.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, wouldn't, you know.
And it's getting close with Addison and
I know,
Lola, too.
saying 18.
Yeah. Luckily, she likes us a lot still.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've really strived to be a cool parent, you know, not be the parent that they hate, and
absolutely.
and just
that's important.
Be a friend and be a parent at the same time. And that's a hard balance, but
It is. Yeah, we've
we're-
even talked about it on the pod a little bit.
Yeah.
Our generation of parents raised us very differently than
It
we're
was.
raising our kids,
Yeah.
and they raised us a little
yeah,
differently.
I think I remember you talking about it.
It you know, but our parents, our grandparents grew up in a very hard world.
Yeah.
They had to work very hard. You had to work to survive back then, not to just buy useless crap on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's completely changed.
Yeah. Yep.
Progress isn't all a bad thing,
Mhm.
but it has a lot of negative consequences
Yeah,
to it.
for sure. Oh, I often wish we could go back to the 90s.
Dude,
I loved the 90s.
it was incredible. And
Yep.
maybe we were too young to really.
We didn't
We didn't have
appreciate it enough.
responsibilities. You know, we didn't know what our parents were going through. Because you're kids, you're
Maybe.
selfish. But
Yeah,
it was a hell of a decade to grow up in.
it was.
The late 80s and 90s.
Yep.
Just incredible.
Yep.
Were you much of a video gamer growing up?
Not really. Just
No.
Mario Brothers and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
But I mean, you remember that stuff coming out. Though. You remember when it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when it hit. Because
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of wild.
Yeah.
Because our dads had like the arcades and stuff
Mhm.
that they could go to. But now it's in the home. You had the Atari,
Yeah.
the Nintendo.
Yeah.
That was
Loved
the
it.
beginning of the end.
Yeah. But I just remember having so much time on my hands.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, you have school, but other than that, like I remember coming home from school and like there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm home and I come home and I loved my dirt bike and I loved playing basketball and just spend all evening outside or in the summer all day outside or just and now it's like this all day long.
Well, that's a big difference of growing up, especially in a rural area.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't even allowed to play until the sun went down. Like
Yeah.
go outside and then
Yeah.
you can play a little bit when you come in.
it's a good rule.
There were restrictions on how
Mhm.
much we could play. I always, even through high school, had like an hour a day
Yeah.
that I could do electronic time. And of course, we didn't have social media or anything.
Yeah.
It was just video games.
Yeah.
I think the N64 was probably the most recent one when I
Mhm.
graduated. You
Yeah.
know, and that looks primitive now.
Yeah.
But I don't think parents establish any kind of guidelines or rules, or and it's really damaging to kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's huge. I know a lot of people that have kids, especially teenagers, boys and girls, who are on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications at 13.
Yeah.
It's like, what is causing this?
Yeah.
Because it was just unheard of to hear about that, and maybe it wasn't talked about as much, more taboo.
Well,
but-
it was
but it's-
it was way more just deal with it back then. I feel like
right.
you know, but
You know, so it's one of those things you got to ask. But people blame social media and they blame this and that, but ultimately the parents have got to be
yeah, and it's hard.
engaged. And sure, it's hard.
It's hard.
Well, it's like you said, you're balancing that friendship versus parent. It is tough.
It's way different with my 13-year-old son. That Addison she wasn't a gamer. She didn't care anything about that. We didn't give her an iPhone until I want to say she was 14 or 15. We didn't let her. She was one of the last one of her friends, and I still didn't want to at that time. But it's like it's so hard when all their friends have it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Dad,
Well, that's a good point. It's that.
I'm the only one that doesn't have it." And for a
Yeah.
while, you can say, "I don't care," but it gets to the point where like they're not causing any problems. She's one of the best kids ever to walk the face of the earth, and so we let her have it, and she was fine. But my son, who's 13, great kid too, but he will play video games as long as you will let him play them.
Yeah.
And we know it's not good for him, and that's a really hard thing because we can give him an hour a day, which is what we try to do.
Right.
And before we know it, he's been in there 3 hours, and I'm like, buddy, I'm going to throw that thing out in the pond,
Yeah.
you know. But it's hard. It's just hard. So
Yeah, it is. Well, you gotta teach them to have self-control. 'Cause
Yeah.
you can't monitor all
Yeah,
the time. 'Cause
that's
like you
right.
said, if you
Yeah.
don't, if you just let it go, they'll play for
yeah,
however long you let them.
yeah.
So we had some of this on that. So
Yeah.
you set a timer, and when that timer goes off, it doesn't mean the next level I complete is when I stop it. But what's challenging that really frustrates my wife is some of these games you can't just save at any time. You got to beat a mission or something.
Well, or they're in the middle of playing with other people.
Sure.
And they don't want to bail out.
Yeah,
right
and
in the
you're in
middle
a
of
group
it.
thing.
Yeah,
so that
like
makes
Fortnite,
it tricky.
You know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, an hour's an hour, but you're in the middle of something with friends,
Yeah.
or you're doing this mission, and so we used to tell Max, okay, just go until you hit the next save.
Yeah.
Well, what we didn't know was he had literally just started this mission and was 2 minutes into it, and it's an hour-long mission, right? So it's like, okay, now we're going to have to round. If you just started a thing, you really got to start. It's stuff you didn't think about talking about with kids, but it's and now they're really good. It's like when that hour, I'm like, anticipate the hour. You know when it's coming up. Don't start something new right before that timer goes off.
Yeah.
And the oldest ones are really good at it. It's the youngest one
Yeah.
I keep my eye on.
Yeah.
'Cause he will.
Well, my 2 youngest boys are the same. All 3 of the boys, they all play together and do that. They
How
love
old
it.
are the youngest again?
They're almost 10.
Okay.
So Silas is 13. They're almost 10.
Yeah.
They all love
So
Fortnite.
not too big a gap.
No.
That's the gap between my middle youngest is 3 years.
Yeah.
And they're close as can be.
Yeah. Fortnite and I think Hunter Call of the Wild, I think, is what they play. And it's their favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's hard to hold back. But
You ever get in there and
trying.
play anything with them?
No, they tried right when they started playing Fortnite. They tried to get me to play some, and I was like, boys, first of all, I haven't played video games in 25 years probably.
Yeah.
And second of all, it was Mario Brothers, which is very simple, very simple. And that Fortnite stuff, and I couldn't even run around.
Yeah.
They just run around and look for people to shoot and stuff, and I couldn't even get anywhere.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like that was our generation that grew up with that stuff, and it's passed us by.
And I don't want to put any time to it,
Yeah.
learn it, because I don't care. So
Yeah. Well, it's a bad trap. During COVID, I put 400 hours on Red Dead Redemption 2, and it was the worst I ever felt about myself, because I knew it was not productive.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything, you were working from home, so I'd just stay up till midnight playing video games,
Yeah.
And now, I can't imagine being in a spot like that. Now, again, anything in moderation. There's some games that are going to come out that I'll play and get into it a little bit, but you just, as a parent, you're always wanting to set an example.
Yeah.
Of course, this is after the kids went to bed, so
Yeah.
they didn't know I was out here playing for 3-4 hours a stretch, but still wasn't good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm just getting old, and I'm ready for bed at 10 o'clock every night, so I don't have to fight it too hard.
Yeah, I'm not, Max and I, we usually, he stays up later than the other ones, and so we'll usually watch something or hang out and talk, and
that's cool.
Get to spend a little one-on-one time together, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's hard when you've got a lot at home to get individual time in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something I find I really have to try and do, like, because you're together as a family a lot, but it's kind of group time. Whereas I really want to isolate in. Like, Walter's playing the drums now, so that's real easy.
Yeah.
We'll just go play 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And jam.
Yeah.
Or just get that one-on-one time, and the more kids you have, the harder it is.
Well, and music is the one thing that I connect really well with.
You can knock out two with one stone.
Henry and Charlie, man, they want to be out in my shop all the time, playing music, which I love.
So which ones, are they both playing drums? Which ones?
They can both play drums. Henry is more into drums than Charlie.
Okay.
So Charlie switched over. He played probably, I don't know, he took probably 2 to 3 years of drum lessons, starting at like 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old. They were really young. And then about 2 years ago, probably, he's like, Daddy, I want to learn to play the piano. So the guy, he takes lessons from Jacob Paul. He's Inside Out Studios in Farmington. Very nice guy. They've been with him the whole time, and so they love him, and he's very talented. He can teach multiple instruments, and so we just switched him over to piano. So he's been teaching him some piano.
Okay, cool.
He loves to pick up my bass. I've got one of those 3/4 length basses.
Oh yeah.
I actually bought it for Silas to learn.
Yeah.
And Silas just didn't ever do a whole lot with it. He can kind of slap around on it, but Charlie loves picking that up, and I think he might decide to try to follow me and play the bass at some point.
What are you gonna do then? Switch over guitar?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I can play the guitar good enough to play with them.
Can you? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I'm not great at all, but I can play with them. So
there's no amount of joy than jamming with one of your kids.
No,
And
it's not,
Well, you
man.
saw me and Dad and Walt get up and do a song. That was
Yeah.
one of the most powerful moments.
Yeah.
Is just having 3 generations on stage
Yeah.
and doing that. That was really cool.
It was awesome, man.
was
It
really,
sounded great,
really
but
fun.
just the overall memory of it is
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah, we got some video of it this time. We didn't get much video during Festa 1, but we got
Yeah.
most of this one.
Yeah.
But man, and he, I tell him, just playing with me is not going to make him that much better because you're going to be playing the same songs.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find an album you love
Yeah.
or something, and just go learn that album. Just play along. You might not be able to do all of it.
Yeah.
But every time work on a different fill.
Yeah.
And he'll just come out here and spend hours.
Yeah.
Just playing drums and the new thing we're trying to work on is getting on a click track.
Yeah.
Is because if you're playing with a drummer who can't keep time signatures, it's like being on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're very fortunate to have a very good drummer in Gary Witherspoon, who is like a metronome, a
Yeah.
human metronome.
Did y'all ever play with click tracks as Durham?
No,
You
never.
didn't? Yeah.
No, in fact, the whole "Carry Me Home" album we did live with no click.
Really?
I think we used a click on a couple of tracks on our third album, but I don't think there were any drums in it. I think
Yeah.
it was just we were layering some stuff. But no, Gary, we didn't have to.
It's great, man.
We would
He's
just
very
try and-
talented.
We
I
would
loved
try and
playing with
track. You what now?
I loved playing with Gary. That one song, he's just super talented.
Did you know him?
No, not really.
Growing
I
up?
knew of him, kind of, just distant, but no, I didn't know him at all. Knew Christy well.
Obviously,
Yeah.
you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a great place for it. It was a
It's perfect.
fantastic experience having that porch and
Yeah,
electricity right up there against the wall.
yeah.
What are we playing next time?
Man, I think it would be really fun to play Metallica or
Which one? Something off the Black album or something earlier?
yeah, probably Black is probably my thing more than like Nothing Else Matters, like stuff like that. I love that
You like
era of Metallica.
Sabbath True or Wherever I
I
May
do.
Roam?
I love both of them.
I've
yeah.
always wanted to play one of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, I love Foo Fighters. As you know, my
There's too
favorite
much work.
my favorite band's POD, but it's probably not going to be. That's a tough one, man. It's a niche kind of.
Yeah, not quite the market.
Yeah, niche kind of thing. Like a lot of people don't know it. It'd probably be hard for you to sing. I'm not a singer. I wish I was. I can
haven't-
actually rap a
POD's
little bit, but
They got some growly vocals, don't they?
Yeah.
A little bit of metal, like it's,
yeah,
it's
I mean,
heavier kind
it's
of stuff. Yeah.
musically the reason I love them is they mix all different kinds of. So they even play reggae. So they have
Yeah.
reggae stuff in their music, hard rock.
How
like
long have they been
punk
around?
rock.
90s? Late 90s?
They started in '92.
Oh, early 90s.
Yeah,
I must
and
not
they,
have heard about them until later.
Yeah, they didn't get big until 2001 when the Satellite album came out,
Okay.
and it actually came out on September 11th, 2001.
oh, man.
Like it
That's
just
wild.
happened that's when it came out, and so my belief is that was a God ordained thing because it's a huge, powerful album spiritually, and like Youth of the Nation is their biggest song ever, and that came out around like when a lot of the school shootings started.
Yeah.
That's
after
why
Columbine.
that's why they wrote it, and so it was very timely when it came out.
Yeah.
So, but I love them musically, but overall, I just I got really inspired by them, by the Satellite album, but I wasn't like a super fan or
Right.
anything. Went to see them in I think 2006 over in Tulsa at Kane's Ballroom.
Yeah,
And
Kane's, great place.
It's one of my favorite venues. I'm not sure. I haven't been there in a long time. I don't think.
either.
I don't think they have the same type of shows anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly moved over to the Brady Theater. I think they call it.
It was such a cool place because it was small enough. Even if you were in the back, you could still.
Yeah.
There were no screens.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like
I've
being
seen
in a big,
so many people there.
Oh.
Seether, like Chevelle, all my favorites.
Well, I went 2 weeks in a row. I went to see Jason Mraz. I think this was 2001 or 2, and I was the oldest one there, and I was the only one not wearing a polo and khakis.
Oh yeah,
And then the next week, I went to see Zach Wilde's band, Black Label Society.
Okay.
I was the only one not wearing leather chaps and biker gear.
Yeah.
And they searched everybody going in for
yeah,
knives.
yeah.
It was
I-
like, what a different crowd.
Yeah, I remember walking in that venue one time, and the bouncers tackled the dude right in front of
Oh,
me.
yeah.
We were walking through the door, and he had a gun on him. They kicked him out. He's like, I have a permit. And they said, we don't care. You're out of here.
And those bouncers are not small gentlemen.
No, they hurt him. I mean, he was screaming for like, you know.
But
mercy.
you were talking about POD. I kind of sidetracked.
No,
a
you're
little
good,
bit,
man.
So you've been following. They're still together, right?
They are, yeah.
Same guys?
Everybody except the drummer. The drummer kind of has decided pretty much to retire. His name is Wov. He's one of the members that formed it. It was him and Marcos, the guitarist, kind of started it, and then they brought in Sonny, the lead singer, and Trey is the bass player. And man, just something grabbed me that night when I saw him in Kane's Ballroom.
So what year would you have seen him in Kane's?
It was 2006, I think.
06. Okay.
Yeah. And something grabbed me that night where this is much more than just a band. It's much more than just some loud music. And so I started listening to him all the time. And I could give you 50 songs that really have like shaped who I've been over the last 20 years, I feel like. Because it not only inspired me a whole lot, but it kind of spoke to who I already was or who I was wanting to be, you know, and it's just really powerful. It's really hard, and I like hard music, and so they've just been my guys.
Topic to get into, because Christians and conservatives even have always had a problem being cool.
Yeah,
I felt like music was something Christianity really exploded into in the 90s.
Yeah,
I mean, DC Talk was one of the top grossing bands of that whole decade.
Yeah,
and rightly so. I mean, their music was
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the early hip-hop stuff was okay, but, I mean, when Jesus Freak came out, that was as good as any rock album out
It's still fun to listen to.
It's still great.
I still love that song.
What If I Stumble might be one of the greatest songs ever written.
Yeah.
And the message behind that song. I mean, it's such a, textbook Christianity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great, beautiful song.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, I think, why it has inspired me so much. You know, I grew up in a very legalistic, if you know that term, legalistic, you know, type Christianity, and I'm not saying that it's all wrong. It made me who I was and things, but POD and, you know, more of like, you know, I'm not a suit and tie kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not really a preppy kind of guy. No, not at all. And these guys come out and they're hard.
Yeah.
They dress like I want to dress.
Yeah.
They don't follow all the rules.
Yeah.
They are very talented musically. They have all kinds of different music, but their words inspired me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're talking about God.
Yeah.
They're not even calling themselves a Christian band, but they're talking about God in just about every song.
Were they on a Christian label or were they on a major label?
It's major. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't think they were on they were a legit major label, just secular band.
Basically. They were huge in the early 2000s. I mean, they played like New Year's Eve Times Square one year. And so, you know, I loved seeing that. I loved seeing that, like, these guys can be Christians and they can say, I love Jesus, and they can still melt people's faces and have fun, you know, and not be worried about every little thing and all the legalistic stuff. Just, we love Jesus. We're going to live for him. We're going to come out here on
do
stages.
It our way.
Yeah, but we're going to come out here on stages
it
where
doesn't have to adhere to this.
Yeah, and you may not even agree. Like, there may be a crowd of 100,000 people out there that doesn't agree with them. They're still going to get up there and sing it, you know. And so I just love that about them, you know. And so in 2019, after me loving them for years, went to a show in Colorado Springs because we just happened to be on vacation in Colorado, and I took Addison and Silas to that show, and we ended up getting to meet the band and hang out on their bus with them. And man, legit, I've been friends with them ever since. Like, they are the most down to earth guys, and so that kind of took me to the next level with them. Where, like,
how sick was that bus?
It was really cool.
I've never been in a tour bus.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, you look at like where they sleep. They're just there's these bunks just stacked on each side of the bus, and I'm like, man, that'd be kind of tough, I think, for months at a time. But it'd also be fun, you know.
I think it'd be fun if you could take your family with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it'd be lonely.
Yeah. Well, Sonny, the lead singer, he's the one that I'm the most friends with. Like, I got his number in my phone. We text pretty often and stay connected. He knows my love for him and how much he's inspired me. I've made sure to let him know that. And so we stay connected, and that's what he's told me is like, if he didn't take his kids with him on lots of that stuff, he just would have had to quit because he couldn't be gone all the time. It wasn't worth it. So his kids grew up, a lot of them like getting to get on the bus with him, just take off, you know.
Well, I don't know if there's a correlation or not, but you look at rock stars from the 60s and 70s, these guys were strung out on drugs a lot. I mean, there was a lot of disturbed stuff going on with these guys, and you don't hear about that as much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe because just rock star, you don't get to the level you did back then, but I almost feel like it's probably easier to take families with you now or accommodate that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know much about that world, but man, that's got to be tough being out there, not having your family with you.
Yeah. It wouldn't be worth it for me. I want to be.
I wouldn't do it.
No,
I'd turn down any.
You're
amount
not
of money.
doing it.
I know.
You could go do it probably.
Well, I had opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, man. Being with your family is all that really matters at the end of the day. So
yeah, that's right.
But I'm finding ways to do it here.
Yeah.
You know, just having people. I don't know if you saw the song I posted last night with Ashley.
No,
and
I haven't seen it yet.
We put I'll show it to you after we get done.
Okay.
But I've had a few. I started just doing musical guests. It's like if the guest is if they play music, we'll do a song, and been putting those out, which has been really fun because it's not if you're preparing for a show, you got 30 songs you got to learn, so you're trying to go through all these and get it tight, and then rehearse as a band with a bunch of people. But if I can just work on one song, and I got a couple weeks to do it, just to do my part, get together with somebody and do a song, and then it's a done deal.
Yeah. That's
easy.
Fun, man. Yeah,
that's
it's
easy.
Fun.
In fact, next time you come on, I think we ought to work something up.
Yeah, I'd love to.
We can hook a bass in anywhere if you want to play bass.
Yeah.
Tell me about that bass you were playing. That's a sick bass.
It's called an MTD, Michael Tobias design, and I played a Music Man for years.
Yeah.
And I just like. I don't have tons of guitars. I just basically was playing one guitar, and I don't have a big collection. And I was like, I think I'm going to like step up big time on my next one because I know I'm going to keep it forever. I'm not. Yeah. It's not like I need 10 guitars. I just want to buy one really cool one. And so I asked a buddy of mine who is more of a gearhead than me and like knows what all the stuff is, and he's a bass player. He's awesome. His name's Chris Tucker, and he said you should look at MTVs. And so I started researching it, and I found that one online. They make them custom, basically, like it's a one of a kind.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I called. They're up in New York State, and I called, and Michael Tobias answered the phone. And,
really?
And I mean, and they've got basses all over, like in like boutique guitar shops all over the country. Yeah, he's the one that answered the phone, and I told him what I was wanting and what type of music I like to play. And I said, I saw this one, I think it was out in California in a music shop. I saw it online, and I described it to him. He's like, oh yeah, I know that bass. And he said, here's a cool story behind that bass. He said the top piece on the body, it was some kind of rare wood. I can't remember what it's called now. He said, we paid $900 for that chunk of wood, and we hope to get like 5 basses out of it. Basically, he said, that one is the only one that we could salvage enough good wood because it had like rotted in different places, and they couldn't get a big enough piece. So he said, just the top layer on your guitar was $900, and we only got it's a one of a kind for that reason. And I was like, well, that's cool, and it kind of sold me on. I was like, that's
neat.
That's
it's
fun.
Got a story.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so I've had it for probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, something like that.
You got into music later, didn't you?
Yeah,
I was not as a young man.
I was like 20.
Yeah,
it was after high school. I was too involved in sports and stuff. Didn't think it was as cool as I do now.
Yeah.
I was just, basketball was my life in high school pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And started getting into playing a little bit with my brother-in-law at the time, and a guy named Will Beeks. I don't know if you remember Will Beeks.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So we started getting together and just jamming and playing, and we decided maybe we can just form our own little band here and just get together and jam for fun.
Yeah.
And so we were all playing guitars, like just electric guitar or acoustic guitar. And so we're like, we're all going to have to find some different instruments. And so I said, well, I guess I can play the bass. It's simple, and I'll hopefully pick it up easily. And Matt Mahan decided he'd play drums, and it was just so funny. Like, we basically formed a band before we could even play the instruments.
That's how it happens sometimes.
Yeah. So then
my son's going through that right now.
Yeah.
He's been kind of picking on a bass, but he's got a buddy that wants to sing and a buddy that has a keyboard.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he can play it. But
Yeah.
they're wanting to get together and start it. Sometimes that, like, necessity's the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Right? So if, like, you have a need,
Yeah.
let's learn it so we can do something together.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with that. We did it for like 4 or 5 years.
Did you?
And we ended up like getting decent. We weren't Durham level, but we kind of got a little bit of a following down in like the River Valley area.
Yeah.
We'd go down to Fort Smith and play a lot.
Sweet.
We played a couple battle bands and won them both. And
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
that was fun.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. So, and then we just went around. We played at churches or just whoever wanted us to play. We just go around and play little things, and we had a lot of fun.
Cool.
doing it.
There's nothing beats live performances.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a totally different thing than practicing.
Yeah.
Practicing is, especially when I can see Gary, we're all looking at each other. But you know, when you're performing, you're all looking out. So you can't have that crutch of watching the cues and stuff. You know, but it makes you good.
It does, and there's just so much more. Well, there's adrenaline when you're in front of a crowd. You know, you got to learn how to deal with the adrenaline and the nervousness. When I first started playing, I was like, my fingers won't even work and do what I want them to because I'm nervous.
What your experience was like with the nerves, because that's a big one for a lot of. You know Jeff Calvert?
I do.
He did a song. He was the first musical guest we had on here.
That's basically the way I know him. I don't know him personally well, but I heard the song and he killed it.
Well, every time I've seen him play, I was like, man, and he's not super technical. Like I think he only knows a certain amount of chords, so he'll put the capo wherever it goes, but he's got this raw grit talent behind it. And him and Scott Stokes came out, and I mean, Scott blows it away every time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that guy. I was never a big harmonica guy until I started playing with Scott.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that instrument can really do a lot.
It adds a lot.
It does, and it doesn't have to, because most of the harmonica you hear on the radio, it's kind of a lead instrument. It's kind of in your face. Blues Traveler just kind of pushed it over the edge for me, I think. Yeah. But the way Scott plays, man, he's kind of subtly in the background, and then if you do give him a solo, he can come out and do that. But I've just never heard anybody play the harmonica like that.
No.
But we were talking about nerves, but Calvert's one of those guys that he can sit down and talk with anybody, not shy, but you put a guitar in front of him, and he
got nervous.
Yeah. And so it was interesting hearing about that, because I'd asked him to play Durham Fest 2, if you want to get upset, do a set, you're welcome to, whatever. And he had brought his guitar out, but it's the nerve thing, and a lot of that comes from a lack of playing live. Yeah. So tell me about when you first, like your first show. Do you remember it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do. I mean, I was probably 21, 22, and yeah, it was scary. And
do you remember
what's
where it was?
really funny? Yeah, I was down in Van Buren. Well, this is the first big show, like 700 people.
Okay.
Before that, it was like we'd have 20 people there.
Sure.
We went to a battle of the bands, and there was some big bands playing at the time in that scene, big for that scene. And so we showed up, and we're like, there's 600 people out there, and we'd never done anything like that. And we had so much adrenaline, I remember, and we did really well. But they called for an encore. It's the only time that ever happened to our band, but they loved it so much, they started saying encore afterwards. So we're like, well, we'll play one more song. We hadn't prepared for that one more song.
You played everything you had.
Yeah, and we took off. We had so much adrenaline, we took off into that song, because we didn't play with clicks back then either. And we started way too fast. Like, so fast that Will couldn't get all the words in, and we ended up having to stop. We stopped about 30 seconds into the song, and we're like, hey, we're going to start this one over. And I was like, why did we not just quit while we were ahead? And it was embarrassing, but the funny thing is nobody cared, and we still won the battle of the bands. So,
hey, nice.
Yeah, we won that one.
I remember one of the first shows I played with Gary, because I had been in bands for a long time. probably started playing with Durham when I was 22, so I'd been playing in bands for 6-7 years, and it might have been a battle of the bands, but we were at George's, the outdoor stage, and I remember Gary drops a stick. I just happened to turn around, I see him drop this stick. It was his left stick, and he just starts playing with one hand. He just reaches over, grabs another stick, and just brings it back in. And I was like, "That's professional.
That's a good drummer.
That's not a." But unless you play a lot, or most people would stop and but you're in the middle of a song, so you do what you got to do.
Yeah,
and it was just a simple thing, but it was like, man, this guy knows.
It's just keeping your cool and having enough confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like messing up, during the show. When you're young, it's you stop or you start it over. Like when you're in a show, and nobody's going to notice for the most part.
Correct.
Scott says this a lot. It's like, maybe 5% of the audience is a musician. Yeah. And even then, a lot of times, now it depends on how egregious it is. I mean, if you just go to the wrong note or something,
they're going to hear it.
Somebody's going to hear something that wasn't right, but most people aren't going to care or notice.
You just look at somebody else. If somebody plays a wrong chord, or if you play a wrong chord, just look at somebody else, like in the band. That it's like, it wasn't me. They don't know who it was.
I think for me, I'm not worried about what people in the audience think. I want to know that I was prepared enough. Yeah. I don't like that feeling of making mistakes.
I'm the world's worst on that, man. I'm like, I want people to think I did great, and I don't want to let my band down or whoever. And it's a scary thing when you hit a wrong note or mess something up real bad, because it freaks me out. Like if I do that, I just feel, because usually I'm real relaxed and I don't have nerves anymore. If I mess up really bad, then all of a sudden those nerves come back, and for the rest of that song, I'm on edge. Like, don't do that again, and you kind of overthink and maybe overplay. But that's a tough one for me.
With me, I just keep a mental tally. It's like, I haven't messed up as much as Johnny has this show. It's kind of a fun little competition. It's like, Gary messed up on that one song, I get one. It's just kind of. But Durham Fest 1 did not go quite as well as I had hoped. We didn't have enough time. I was nervous, nervous as hell that show. And again, not for any other reason than I just didn't feel like we had the time. Yeah. And I feel like we needed maybe one more week. And it wasn't the best show we'd ever played. This last one was a lot better than the first one. But it's all about that experience. I remember the first show I ever played, I was really nervous because I'd never played in front of an audience. But once that first song was over, I realized, it's just fine. It's just like playing anywhere else. And it never bothered me again.
Really?
It was just the one time. And I couldn't sleep for like a week. And it was at Clunk. You remember Clunk?
I loved Clunk.
I was 15 years old. It was not the best venue in the world, but what the opportunity it gave us to get up and play, especially as kid garage bands, to just go out and play in front of a live audience. Yeah. That was the coolest thing to have.
Yeah, it didn't matter if it was a crap hole. It was like, I'm hearing loud, like, just hard rock music for the first time ever live, and so it was great.
Yeah, and because they didn't pay licensing fees to ASCAP and BMI, you couldn't play covers. So it also forced bands to play all original stuff, which is a reason, I think, or part of the reason we had such a good original music scene in the late 90s. There were a lot of big original bands. When I was in Sober from 97 through 2000, and we were opening up for national acts in Fayetteville. Really? Just because we were part of that scene, and we did all originals. And you had bands like Android 19 and Kind that were headlining the big clubs on Dixon, and they were doing all originals, and people came out for it. Yeah. And then somewhere after that, it changed. It really went to more of a college, which I'm surprised that ever happened at all, really. But it went to, you kind of had to play at least 50-50 covers to get booked, which I was really resistant to. Yeah. Because I'd been spoiled. Yeah. I had a whole career, teenage career playing originals, and now you're starting to work up covers, and we all have our biases in the way. Now it's such a purist. It's like, bands don't play covers. It's like against the rules. And so then next thing you know, you're playing Funk 49, and it ended up being really rewarding because it does get people
into the show more, because otherwise they don't know the songs.
Yeah.
You know, I have a totally
It's just
different
so
take on it.
different when they know the songs.
Oh yeah. So then we'd start mixing them in. You know, you'd do about half and half, but
Mhm.
you'd do a cover, you'd sneak in an original,
Yeah.
and then people would stay on the dance floor or something.
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of started doing the set strategically and put your big sing-alongs at the end. And
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed doing them now a lot more than I did back then. But
Well, it was fun when I saw you guys play back then, because you had a following where people knew your songs,
yeah,
even though they were originals. Like, people
Yeah.
knew them.
yeah, that is cool. It takes a lot of work to get there.
Yeah,
but
and you
when
still got
do-
a lot of them.
Yeah, no,
still come around
well,
for
that's
your.
who's coming to Durham Fest,
Yeah.
and that's what's really cool. I think we're gonna keep growing it. We got to figure out. I'd like to make it just fully public, but I hate to do that to anyone's home. You know,
Mhm.
you hate to just invite everyone on the planet to somebody's house.
Yeah, there's no telling how that will be left if you have a good turnout. You know, if you,
And maybe it would be fine.
Yeah.
You know, Gary mentioned to me, I think the next day we talked, and he said there was no trash. Everything,
Yeah.
everybody picked up after themselves. The same.
but
here.
you knew everybody.
True.
You have 100. If you have 100 extra people, it's probably not going to be a big deal. If you have 500, it might be a big deal.
Right. And who knows? I don't even know if we're doing another one this year or not.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to coach football and getting ready to cut way back on the pods and
Mhm.
focus on that, which that'll be fun.
You've been rolling the pods out.
Yeah. Yeah, it got to be more than I could handle. I didn't even know if I'd get through a month. I was like, I don't know if I've got enough friends to even come on. That's when you talk about spirituality or Christianity or whatever. That's when I knew I was wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Was that I'm booked for 3 months, and I don't want to go any farther than that because I don't know where, I
Yeah.
don't know what's going to go on in my life in 3 months. So, and I've probably got 20 people on a waiting list. I got people
That's
who are
awesome,
coming
man.
on again. It's been really rewarding.
That's definitely a good definition of being rich. I've been crazy blessed with how much success I've had in
But
real,
you've also
in,
worked
in real
worked
estate.
your-
I have.
worked your butt off.
I have, but it's nothing like the money I've made or whatever. It's
Yeah.
nothing compared to, number one, my relationship with God, but my family, my friends. Like that's my wealth.
And
Okay.
close friends.
Yeah, close.
People
yeah.
that you can sit down and talk to, and that's one of the rewards of doing this. Is I counted it up today. I've had 32 unique guests on,
Yeah.
not counting repeats, that I've got to sit down and spend a couple hours with, just one-on-one,
Yeah.
or sometimes in a group of people, but mostly one-on-one, and learn so much about them that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yeah. That's cool,
Like,
man.
how do we get back to that in society? Because people used to do that.
Mm-hmm.
People would come over and have dinner and just sit on the back porch, and
Yeah.
our lives have gotten so fast and complicated that
Yeah.
you only see the people you care about at certain events, which
Yeah.
might be once a year,
Yeah.
and then you don't get any. It's like Durham Fest 1, my biggest gripe was that I didn't get to see anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Our original guitar player came down from Tulsa. I got to, and during one of the breaks, I got to shake his hand and say hi, and that was it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hadn't seen him in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, it is.
But you do something like this, which is why I made that comment today. Like, I think you'd be a really good host of a podcast.
No, thanks, man. I honestly am surprised I said yes to it, and I just did because I think you and I have similar hearts for like people and
Sure.
like connecting, and just we already talked about the sentimentality piece. Like I just think we're very similar in that, and I've been asked to be on video a lot of times for real estate stuff.
Yeah,
And I'm always like, no,
Really?
I'm not doing that. Yeah, I've said no every time.
that surprises me.
Yeah, I don't like being in front of people and hey,
So
look
are
at me.
are
and
you an introvert, would you say?
I don't know, because when I was a senior at Farmington, I got voted most outgoing. But I think as I've gotten older, like, I mean, yeah, when you get me talking, it's hard to get me to shut up.
Right.
But
But usually if you're talking to somebody you're comfortable
yeah,
with.
if I don't know people, and really for me, it's like, honestly, most of the, I kind of hate to say this because it sounds hateful, but I'm just different than most of the real estate agent community.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
kind
would-
of
I would say
different
so.
than that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put myself on a billboard. I don't want to say, hey, look at me and how great I'm doing. And I don't dress the part, really, and so I really just try to keep to myself more, I think, because of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm an introvert or not, but if I'm with my people, I'm probably not.
Well, I'm a huge introvert, and mostly I listen to. You familiar with Jordan B. Peterson?
I know the name.
He's on a Daily Wire now, but he's a Canadian psychiatrist. But I'd been an introvert all my life, just social anxiety, being around people I don't know, and a lot of it's just the lack of authenticity. It's just kind of having to fake it. And
I can't stand fakeness.
But I could talk for hours and hours with somebody I care about.
Yeah.
Just sitting down and having a conversation because it's genuine.
Yeah.
You're not putting on a face. You're not trying to pretend you're somebody you're not. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff just it really used to exhaust me.
Yeah.
And Jordan B. Peterson was talking about how introverts have a battery. And so it's like as you're out and doing those kind of things, it drains that battery.
Yeah.
And then you need to go have some alone time.
Yeah.
And recharge that battery.
Yeah.
Whereas extroverts are kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Once they're alone and it's quiet, they don't like that.
Yeah.
It starts draining that battery. They need to get out amongst different people.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
It's interesting because it helped me understand, what I was and how I was. Because, I think everybody's on different frequencies.
Yeah.
And everybody has a lot of different frequencies. But when you can find people that you have a strong frequency with, hold them dear, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because, friends can be closer than family in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And just giving the time and the energy to those people that deserve it.
Yeah.
And not giving the time and energy to people who don't deserve it or who are a negative in your life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people put up with bad family just to keep things going, and it ends up being so much more negativity and stress when you got to really ask, who's important.
Yeah. I find myself being very black and white with relationships like that. Like if we don't mesh or we're not on the same page, not that we have to agree on everything.
Sure.
But if you're not
there's certain things
that it's like,
that are deal breakers.
We're not friends.
We're not going to do this anymore. Yeah. I feel like I am too, and it's I don't know. Is it a good or a bad thing? For me, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you don't waste energy on bad vibes or relationships. You have more time to focus.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I do too.
For sure. My oldest one's kind of going through that now, though, where he's not as wealthy as we are with friends, right? So he's making friends, but he's got a very high standard.
Yeah.
I say he's 14 going on 50. Like, he's just an old soul.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if you ever watched the original Star Trek, but he's like Spock. Just very, he'll laugh, he'll have a good time, but he's just very
serious,
cautious, serious, and reflects on everything before he makes a decision. He really thinks things through. The exact opposite of how I was at that age.
Yeah, that's a rare trait at that age.
What am I going to do that's fun?
Yeah.
Let's do it. He's like, I want to think on this for a minute.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
But he's at that point where it's like he didn't want to waste time on people that aren't going to enrich it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when your friend bank is this big,
yeah.
It's been.
Well, they have and they have to reciprocate. That's a big thing with me. Is like I'll be the most loyal person but if it's not reciprocated over and over, like I'll move on from that type of person.
Yeah.
And that's something to learn. Usually the younger kids don't quite get that. I don't think.
Well, the older I get, obviously, the wiser I get, and also at the same time realize the less I know.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm still learning at 42, and I really don't know anything. But then you try and put yourself in your kids' shoes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we literally knew nothing at their age and thought we knew everything.
Yep.
Or we thought we had it all figured out, and it wasn't quite as simple as we thought.
Yeah.
But I think there's things our generation does better than our parents.
Yeah.
I think there's some things that we definitely learned and kept, that they did. But we're all trying to get along as best we can.
Yeah.
But
and improve.
Yeah, absolutely, and improve.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody that you're giving negative energy to, that's a strain that is really unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the need to continue that.
Yeah.
Ruins a lot of Christmases, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you had you were talking earlier about having a dirt bike when you were younger.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
When I was 10 years old, I got a dirt bike for Christmas, and I begged for it from the time I was about 5 or 6.
Okay, so you've been asking. You were consistent
I was
on the
obsessed
dirt bike
with
ask.
it.
Okay.
And my parents kept saying, no. And they ended up buying one for $200 from my cousins out in Oklahoma City one year. It was a used. They had basically about worn it out.
Yeah.
Their kids had, and they'd grown up. They're older than me, and so they bought that. Yeah, they bought that, and we finished running the wheels off of it. I actually sold it to Dwayne Peck. I don't know if you remember him. He was a Farmington guy, graduated with me.
Is that Tim's older brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Older, I think. I can't remember.
He would have been older because Tim was
It's his brother, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, sold it to him, and I think he completely, it was about done when I sold it to him. And
was that the last one you had, or did you?
No, I've had a lot.
Have you?
Yeah.
So you still ride?
I've always loved motorcycles. I don't have one right now. My boys have dirt bikes.
They do?
Yeah. I've just got a side-by-side that I putter around our land on, and I don't go out and ride much anymore.
Yeah.
But busy, has just taken over, I feel like, as much as I hate to say that. But I feel like we do a lot of trying to get away with. We have a camper, and that's my favorite thing to do these days because it's with the whole family. And so we try to get away and do that quite a bit. But I don't get out and just do things by myself much for fun. We do that as a family, and I play music at church, and other than that, just work.
Where do you guys go camping?
Well, we just went to Destin, Florida. We got back last weekend, and we camped.
You took a camper down there?
We took it. Yeah.
Okay.
We went to Hot Springs, stayed a couple nights, and then we went to Destin, stayed 10 days, and then we went over to New Orleans for one night, and we did a swamp tour in New Orleans, and then we came back home. We just made a loop. So it's a lot of fun. We've been to Yellowstone. We've been to Estes Park, Durango, Colorado.
So there's how many? 7 of you?
There's 6 if Lola doesn't go, because usually we do the big trips in the summer, and Lola is back home in Poland during that time. So there's 6 of us. Okay. We all get in my truck. It's got 6 seats.
That's a packed family right there.
Yeah, the kids are begging me to buy a motorhome type situation.
Yeah.
And I'm
get you a tour bus.
Yeah, I'm like, those things are so.
Didn't Al buy an old tour bus?
He still has it, as far as I know. It's an old bus that he's trying to convert into a motorhome.
So it's not finished?
No, he's had it for probably 15 years.
No, he's had it for 20 years.
Probably.
When I was working for him, it was like 01, 02.
Yeah, that's right.
And he had it then.
I don't know what he's done to it, but I think it's still in his shop.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit Gibson Realty.
Yeah.
Just how did you get into real estate, and then how did that develop into starting your own business?
Man, I did construction right after high school. I always say that was better than a college education for me. I was done with school. I didn't want another day of it. I was not going to do well because my heart was not in it, and I was always kind of entrepreneurial, and so went into construction, learned that. Built my first house when I was 20 years old. My dad gave me a half acre off of our land over there on Ray's Mill, and built that house as 20 years old. Moved into it I think a month or 2 after I turned 21, and I kind of just really enjoyed dealing with houses and construction and things like that, but didn't really want to do construction my whole life. It was hard. It was super hard work,
But you owned your own house at 21.
Yeah, I built it.
That's pretty awesome.
Built it with my own hands, but I had my uncles. I had Al and Kent.
Yeah.
My dad. They all came out there. My mom, friends. Casey Evans came out there.
You literally built it, not
literally built it.
You literally built it.
I subbed out brick and stuff like that. Dylan Phillips laid the brick on it.
Nice.
He was 18 years old at the time.
I was about to say, he'd have been young.
Yeah. Built that. It was a 1,400 square foot house. Turned out great. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and lived there a few years, and then sold it, bought 10 acres out on Weddington, and split a little bit off and sold it. At the time, by that time, I was working at Robbins Realty.
Yeah.
I decided like I want to go into real estate, and so Larry Robbins hired me, and that was a really good situation. I'm still close family friends with them. Really funny, Silas, my 13-year-old, one of his best friends is Larry's grandson, Maddox. They're the same age.
Kidding.
Yeah, they're like best friends.
That's wild, isn't it?
It's wild because the Robbins family,
Yeah,
I was really
that's
close
cool.
to them, and then I went off and started my own,
Sure.
and now we're still connected. That's really cool. But yeah, got into that. I was with them for 8 years, and didn't really want to leave because they were family, but I just knew that I was supposed to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I had lots of ideas. I had the idea for the box truck. It wasn't my idea, but I'd seen it happen, and I
Yeah.
wanted to do it. Had that box truck that I would loan to people for free when they bought or sold through me, and did that for, I think I bought that in 2009 when I started Gibson Real Estate.
Yeah.
And that was a really good thing because it was a billboard driving around for me, and
Yeah,
then
it
got
was.
the benefit of using it as a
It
moving
helped
truck.
me out a couple times.
Yeah. Actually, just got rid of it just a
Did
few
you
months ago.
really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. Man, I'm all about purpose, and there was, I probably would have never sold it, but there were some people that were needing it, and I was kind of, the business has grown so much that
Didn't need it as much.
it was causing a problem more than anything, because
Really?
we had, we've been selling around 100 million worth of real estate a year for the past like 5 years.
Yeah.
And so you've got that much volume,
Yeah.
and everybody's asking to use it, and
Yeah.
I'm having to tell, 8 out of 10 people, no, it's booked. And so it's either I buy more and I
And
make
go
it a
down
really
that
big
road.
thing, or I'm just like, hey, we can't do that anymore. And so
That's a lot of overhead.
it was a lot of liability in the first place,
Sure,
and I was taking risk with that, so it was time to just end
It was a
it.
heck of an idea to get going, though.
Yeah, it was
was-
awesome.
it
It
was
helped us
awesome.
get rolling
Yeah.
and helped us get noticed. And I remember when I first got it. This is funny, and it's burnt in my memory. And there was a competitor down the road in Farmington that when I first got it, I had it sitting out by the road in front of my office
Yeah.
there at Audra Bailey's
Yep.
attorney office where I was officing out of, and I parked it right out by the road.
Mhm.
And I remember seeing him go by, and he was like, as he went by, he was eyeballing that thing like, what is that?
Yeah.
And it was really funny.
That
and
is funny.
I'm friends with this guy, but I was just like, hey, that was kind of priceless seeing
That is funny.
Yeah.
You ought to buy you another one just to park somewhere.
Yeah.
Just as kind of a
Yeah.
nostalgic.
I've thought about just buying a trailer, just a cargo trailer,
Yeah.
and wrapping it and letting my friends, family that use me use it, but not doing it full
Yeah.
blown for the whole company, because that's where the problem comes in. It's just like, man, when you've got 50 agents and everybody's trying to get use of it,
Yeah.
that's, you either got to go big or don't do it at all, and I don't want to go big with that. So
When did it really? So you started it in, would you say 09?
09.
When did it really start taking off?
Not till really, I was doing okay, the first 5 years. First year was decent because we'd come out of 08. 08 was my last year at Robbins Realty, and that was the worst year in real estate ever, probably.
Yeah, sure.
I made I probably made like 15 to 20% income of what I had made in 2006
Wow.
in 08. And so it was a very tough time.
Yeah.
So in 2009, I started Gibson Real Estate, and I didn't have any overhead at the time. And so it was a big jump even that first year for me. It was a lot better, but still very modest income. And then it just kind of it's been up every year since then, except for 23. 23 was the first time it's ever dipped back down. We've been up every year.
Well,
But
that's out of your control.
yeah, and it can't go up forever. Like,
No.
and everybody was down a little bit, but yeah, when we started hitting numbers like, $70 million in volume of houses, I was blown away. It's like, you got to be kidding me. And
Yeah.
and now we've hit 110 a couple times or something like that. And I really don't get wrapped up in the numbers like most
That's
agents
good.
do. I don't ever look at it. I just, at the end of the year, the board of realtors tells us what our volume was. That's the only way I even know.
Really?
And that's and it's
I like that about you.
Yeah, it's always
you're
fun.
Not wrapped up in that.
Man, I try really hard to always remember like how I felt when I was just a peon.
Yeah.
And one of my friends would call me and want to buy a house, and it was their first house or whatever, and I'm going to do everything I can to take care of them, and so grateful for it because I need it really, really badly. I never want to get away from that, you know, and so even when I've had really good successes, I'm like, I don't want to ever let that go to my head or be a big deal about it, you know.
It's good that you're aware that it can go to your head.
Well, you see
I mean?
it all
like
the time.
You have a self-awareness. Yeah, I've seen it all the time.
Yeah.
With people a lot less successful than you are.
Well, honestly, like the success for me is like you're a prime example of it, because I'm like, man, I love the fact, it's the whole reason I love what I do, that you're out here on how many acres? 20?
Yeah, we're on 20 now.
20, and I remember when you first called me and you were like, man, we'd love to buy a piece of that land, and I think at the time you were just wanting to try to buy this little 4-acre piece right here, 4 to 5 acres, something like that.
Well, initially we were using you, and I was actually going to tell you our perspective of this story tonight, so I wanted to tell you in person, but we were looking for something something already built out in the country on like 5 acres.
Yeah.
And you had shown us some places, and we weren't.
I don't even remember that. Which I did.
And we had looked at a few places, and it was on that visit when we had met with you. You were talking to me and Julia someplace down off of Harmon, and you said the words, and we still repeat this to each other all the time. Do you remember when James said, "How do you feel about living on a dirt road?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably don't remember that.
No, I don't.
But we were both like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And you drove us out here. And at the time, Mike was probably going to buy this spot.
Yeah.
And that was what you were showing us. But we loved this here.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We got to get out there.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Mike dropped out of it, and we ended up buying this spot. And then we bought the 10 back behind.
Yeah.
Which, thank you very much.
Yeah.
For that.
Well, I remember calling you. I remember calling you on that, and
Yeah.
I was excited about it for you because I'm like, man, this is a perfect fit, and I'd just love to see. Like, I want to look back when I'm done and be like, man, I helped that family find the spot that they raised their kids on, and that they loved. You know.
Well, this is called Chicken Holler back here.
Oh, is it?
Which is named after your family's.
That's cool.
And the road that would have gone up to where your place would have been, that 40 back there, we call that Gibson Road.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Well, we are very grateful for you getting us out here. We don't forget it.
It just goes
Never
back to the same thing we've been talking about. Man, I just think you're similar to me in that, and I try to keep that perspective. And I'm not usually when I'm talking about having success, it's not as much about how much money I made. It's like,
who you've touched.
Yeah, it's like purpose,
helping people.
Yeah, the money's going to all go away at some point, but I can look back and be like, man, I lived with a purpose, and that's what I want.
And that's awesome that you still feel that way, because it really did. It changed our whole lives.
That's awesome.
I mean, my youngest one was born out here.
Yeah,
that's all he's ever known.
Yeah,
and I mean, him and the 2 youngest ones, they'll be outside 8 hours a day in the summer. They'll take walkie-talkies with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, just stay on the property, and if you leave the property, let me know, and let me know where you're going.
Yeah.
And they'll be gone for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then they'll come home and like, can I have some electronic time? I'm like, yes, you can. You can chill out and play a video game. But they build forts out there, and they're just, it's a lifestyle that I wanted my kids to have.
I remember you wanting that.
Yeah.
And I remember like thinking, man, y'all are brave. Like, you were going to build this little garage and live in it. I'm like, man, most people just wouldn't do that. And I knew you were different at that point.
It takes sacrifice, and it was hard.
Yeah,
it was hard. We had a conversation, but it was challenging. But man, was it it was the biggest payout we ever got.
Yeah, it's awesome.
When you got 5 people and 660 square feet, But again, when it wasn't freezing outside, the kids had all the acreage to play on, so they could go out and play.
Yeah,
and that's where they learned to do that.
Yeah,
you couldn't just stay in.
Yeah,
all the time.
That's cool, man.
But I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah,
and now it's something hopefully I'll have forever.
Yeah, love it, man.
and there's good people out here. It's basically a barter system.
Yeah.
Like James, do you know James Spears very well?
Oh yeah, when I owned this land, that's when I got to know him. Really funny story. You just jogged my memory on it. There was a mobile home down here at the bottom of the hill.
Bottom of the hill.
Yeah. When I bought it.
It was still here when we.
Was it?
Yeah.
Do you remember when I burned it down? I didn't know how to get rid of it, and so.
Did you burn it?
Yeah, lit it on fire and burned it, and all that was left was the metal frame. And James came over here and was like helping me clean it up, and I mean I didn't even know him at the time, and he came
really?
over here and he was helping me, anything you need, and came over here and helped me clean everything up. And that's kind of my redneck roots there. Just burn it down and deal with it later.
We found shrapnel from the car you blew up.
Oh, yeah.
On where that house is for probably 3 years.
Yeah. I've got a video somewhere of that.
So tell the story of what happened that night.
We had we used to have a little fall party out at my house that was just 5 minutes from here, and we just it would be around Halloween, and we'd have a bonfire and invite all our friends over and shoot guns and whatever. And that year I said, hey, I've got a good friend, Brandon Moss is his name. He's the manager of Springdale Ford still. And at the time, he was the sales manager of Springdale Ford. He loves guns too, and we had always talked about it'd be really fun to blow up a car. He said, I can provide the car, because he's always getting some clunker that's not worth hardly anything. And so he had this Ford Taurus, and he was coming to the bonfire. He's like, hey, what if we blew this car up? And I was like, I'm down with that. And we could do it over at Hamstring, because there's room there. I'm not going to. This was probably.
I bought it in 14.
Yeah, it's probably about around 2010.
Okay.
Probably, maybe 12, something like that. I don't remember exactly when I bought this. If you bought it in 14, I probably bought it in like 2012.
Okay.
And so we brought that car out here. And first we all drove it around. There was a few of us guys out here at first, and we all got in the car and we were trying to like ramp it and do all kinds of stuff. And so then like all the guys showed up, and we lined up with ARs, shotguns, 30-30s, everything.
Yeah.
We were lined up right over on the edge of the hill over here, and it was sitting about where your house is. Yeah. And we just unloaded on it, just
I know exactly where it was, because it was black for a long time.
So then I had a Tupperware thing of tannerite that I'd put mixed up. Yeah. It was like 7 pounds, I think, if I remember right. It was like 14 of the little canisters all combined. Yeah. We put it right in the middle inside the car, and I shot it myself with an AR from down there, and it blew the roof off of the car, probably 40 feet in the air. It blew the doors out, like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And
there's video of this.
There's video, and then the scariest part, we had a propane tank, and this is how it got burned to the ground, why you found pieces of burnt stuff everywhere. We put the propane tank in the middle of the car and lit a rag, set it in the car, and then got back away and shot the propane tank, and it was a crazy explosion of flames, and that car was on fire completely. The tires were burning off of it, black smoke like crazy, and we were all like, oh crap, like this is, everybody around here heard all the booms, and now it's black smoke, and the cops are going to be here soon. And we're like, we're acting like I used to act when I was 15, and we were 30 at the time.
Way older than you probably should have been.
Yeah, but I hope to never grow up.
True. Amen.
And so one of my friends, he was a pastor at the time, he's like, hey man, I'm a pastor, you guys just all take off back to your house and have your party. He said, I'll stay here and watch the car burn and make sure it's safe, and if anybody shows up, I'll probably get by with it because I'm a pastor. Yeah. And I was like, that sounds awesome, man. So we took off, and nobody ever showed up. So kind of crazy what you can get by with out here.
Yes.
Oh, and then when USA Metal, we called them to come get the car.
Yeah.
For scrap metal. Yeah. We were like, you can have it, just junk car, just come get it. They came out here and they called me, and they were like, we need to know what happened here. And I was like, well, we blew up a car. Yeah. And they're like, so that's all? And I was like, yeah, we lined up, and there's gunshot holes all through it, and we blew it up. And they're like, okay, well, we're really worried that a murder or something happened here. But they just took my word for it. They're like, okay, we'll take it. and they took it.
So they're asking if maybe y'all were destroying evidence.
If there was a murder, yeah, or
and
something.
then they were just like, okay.
Yeah,
that's
they took
funny.
It. Yeah. Yeah, it was wild, man. And we've talked about it ever since and thought we need to do that again, but we haven't done it since.
We could do it out here. We do it on that field up there.
Yeah, I'm down.
Just keep moving up the hills.
Yeah.
You talk about spears, man. That guy's brush hogging my fields for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Will not let me pay him.
Yeah. He's unbelievable,
He just wants
man.
eggs.
Yeah.
I tried to get him on the podcast. He didn't have time for that nonsense.
Yeah. That would be an awesome podcast.
Oh, I know. If you have any influence with him,
next time I see him, I'll try to talk him into it.
But he's become a grandfatherly figure to me.
Yeah.
He just taught me a lot and he was telling me a story one time. This was this year, not long ago. He was out here getting eggs and talking about when Fayetteville only had 2 cop cars, and this is back when the railroad tracks up on Dixon. One of them had gotten hit on the railroad tracks, and they only had 1 cop car in town, and everybody knew it. So everybody's going wild on that part of town.
Do whatever they want.
And Weddington was dirt, and just the kinds of stories.
Yeah.
And he'll get into a lot of this stuff, and like, man, I want to get this on record.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I don't know who he.
I've never heard any of that. I mean, that's an old.
But man, I've probably got 20, 30 stories he's told me.
Yeah.
They're just wild that I want to hear
That
him
would be
tell.
cool. Yeah.
Because he's told me a lot of them more than once.
Yeah.
Because once, and I do that to my kids too.
Yeah.
I ever told you? Yes, we've heard
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
But because I love stories.
Yeah.
It was part of my nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
My grandpa would tell me stories. Both of my grandparents. My grandpa Don Studio used to take our school pictures. You remember him?
Yeah.
That man was a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he caught that bass over there. That story got wilder and wilder every year. But yeah, I remember he killed a rattlesnake in an attic, and it was a 5-foot rattlesnake, and the next year it was 11 feet, and 10 years later it's an anaconda that had him wrapped up. But he just told it, and you knew he was bullshitting. But even the people who hadn't heard the story before, but he did it so well, and just told it so convincingly. And I always just love storytelling, in any form or fashion.
I love that too.
And a lot of these guys from that generation can just tell these stories in a way that is lost to time. Yeah. I had Jason Fisher's dad on recently. I think it came out today, actually. But, he's just a man from another place in time. Mm-hmm. And that person doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. It's like a model of vehicle that they just don't make. Yeah. And they are set in their ways, and this is how the world is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. James Spears, I mean, I was blown away when I owned this property, and he came over and helped me, and he wouldn't take anything from me either. I tried to pay him. I remember us being out here all day long trying to clean that place up, and it was freezing cold, and I mean, he worked out here all day, and I was like, man, let me pay you. No, he never took a thing from me.
Well, he told me one of the most valuable things I've ever heard from another human being. His wife passed 2016, 2017. It was the first time I saw any emotion out of that man. And it was touching, because that generation is tough. Yeah, they are tough, and to just see that vulnerability, it was really powerful. But I remember shortly after that talking to him. I was like, James, you don't ever let me pay for anything. I don't feel good about doing this. And he said, I need to be doing something. He said, all the friends I know who have stopped doing things have died because they don't have a purpose. Yeah, I've got to go out and be doing something. Yeah. So if this helps me get something done, and I was like, man, that's a really kind of sad but powerful. It's one of those things that resonates with you.
Yeah. And I think it's true. It is true. I don't think we're designed to really retire. I think you have to change what you're doing, but I mean, just like your dad. Your dad's kind of retired, but he's found something else to do.
Yeah,
now,
he's working. Yeah,
and I think that's good, because I don't think just sitting around.
I was worried about him. I was like, what's he gonna do? He's not one of those men that can just
Well, and I mean, even when you're young, it's not good to just sit around. You find things that you shouldn't, and when you're old, you might just die.
Well, COVID is a great example.
Yeah,
I became a sloth.
Yeah,
just playing video games. Yeah, and it's like, that was terrible. But how many people across the country were locked in, away from their loved ones, and like, it was a
pretty dark time in this nation, and it kind of got, people seem to have already forgotten about it.
Yeah. You get me started on masks and all that stuff, I'll go off.
Oh, well, we can get started together.
I've heard you a little bit on the I think it was harps.
Fires me
and
up.
all that stuff. Yeah, it fires me up too. And my wife
nobody was asking
tells me I need to
questions.
move on, but no, I was just like, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't agree with you, and I'm just because you say I have to, I'm not doing it. You know, I'd walk in a place and if they told me to put a mask on, I'd walk back out.
And it wasn't even just about the masks.
No,
it was
no.
about
It was
all
about
of the
all of it.
lies,
Yeah.
about all the censorship. I had never seen censorship in America to that extent.
Mhm.
And it was like, if they're censoring someone, doesn't that mean they're afraid of what they have to say?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they were wrong, they would just prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And that's when I really got, I wasn't very political. I was pretty much, let me just get through the day. I'll kind of follow the headlines.
Yeah.
Kind of an irresponsible way to vote. But,
Yeah.
you know, that's where I was in my life.
Yeah.
And it was COVID that really,
Yeah.
it's like, man, we are being lied to by all the media,
Yeah.
all the pharmaceutical company, everybody.
Mhm. Yep.
And now it's all been proven true. Everything we were saying
Yeah.
5 years ago has been proven true.
Yeah.
But it's
Nobody
nobody's
wants.
covering.
Yeah.
Nobody's
It's
talking
just we're
about
just
it.
moving on.
We're just moving on from this.
We don't
got a
get to
memory
hear "I
hole.
told you so,"
No.
or "You were right." I
Right.
guess it would be. We
No,
don't get to
they'll
hear
never
it,
say
right?
that. Well,
Yeah, it's-
what was your thought? Where were you when the news hit you that President Trump had a shot taken out?
We were actually in Hot Springs on our way to Florida for vacation,
Mhm.
and I just saw a headline on my phone: "Trump's been shot." I was like, wow.
Did you think he was dead at first?
I mean, I assumed he was probably hurt really badly.
Yeah.
I think it's a miracle that it went the way it went. But yeah, I was
if
shocked.
you're a spiritual person,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a temple shot.
Yeah.
And he just happened to turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
I am. I believe in miracles, and I don't believe Trump's our Messiah or anything like that.
Sure.
Like some people act, but
Well, yeah, that is kind of scary.
yeah, but I do believe his policies are pretty good.
I do
wish
too.
he'd quit talking so much and just do his policies.
He's
but
been pretty good.
I
Last year.
honestly noticed a huge difference in him at his speech
At the RNC?
Yes, huge difference. And I mean, you got to have a different.
That was a different Trump.
It was.
That was a different human
a
being.
near-death experience can probably do that to you.
That's
but-
when I knew that, man, that really happened.
Yeah.
Like, this shook that man.
Yeah,
'Cause I'd never
it did.
seen him rattled.
Yeah,
And it wasn't even that he was rattled. I just think he realized.
more reflective and humbled and careful what he said. I felt
I feel like even he didn't think they were going after him as hard as. Like, they would never do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing all the legal stuff
Yeah.
and all. Yeah, they're coming after me, but they wouldn't try this.
Yeah.
And then I think he realized, oh, they'll stop at nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you
it's
imagine
crazy.
going through something like that?
No, it's crazy. And I struggle with, is he great or is he not, And I told my kids just the other day, because they struggle with it too. I've got family that thinks he's amazing, and I've got others that we're close to that are like, he's not a very good person,
Yeah.
And I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I don't
I'm really
100%.
interested to hear your perspective on him as
I
a
don't-
man of faith and
Yeah.
what your thoughts are there.
I mean, it's really hard, and I actually steer clear. I'm not scared to talk about this. I'm not saying that at all, but I steer clear for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm called to do something different than try to sway somebody in politics.
Sure.
And if I do that, and I've got liberal friends that believe this, and I've got extremely conservative friends that believe this, and I lean toward the conservative, and that's me. I'm the conservative one.
Same.
But I love those liberals just as much.
Same.
And if I'm hating on the other side, I'm not doing what Jesus told me to
Man,
do.
and that I saw a post you did, I think it was last week, about
Yeah.
that same thing, and it
Yeah.
really resonated with me because there's so much polarization, which is exactly what they want.
Yeah.
They want us fighting
Yeah,
because
they
then we're
do.
not united,
Yeah.
and then we're not pointing the finger at them.
Yeah.
We're pointing at each other.
Yeah.
There's so many great friends I have that are on the left, and as long as
Yeah.
we and don't talk about Trump, you can talk about anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I can't think of really one thing that I disagree with Trump on
Policy
policy-wise. Yeah.
But he's also not
very far right. He's pretty moderate.
Yeah, and maybe I'm more moderate than I think, but I think that's just because I think that something has to give, something we have to come together, and compromise a little bit. My biggest thing is abortion. That's the one thing I won't give on, and I believe it's murder, and I believe it's
murder upon conception, like immediately.
I wouldn't say I'm scientific enough to say for sure. I just overall the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one either. I just am curious to
just overall my whole thing in my spirit just says that's not what God wants us to do, and
well, it certainly is murder at some point
in
that line.
Yeah,
I mean, I think even the I had a lady on, Shauna and I were talking about abortion, and she's very pro-choice.
Yeah.
I tend to lean more,
Yeah.
I'm not pro-abortion by any means.
Yeah.
But I asked her, so third trimester, is that okay? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
This is as far left as you
Mm-hmm.
get.
Yeah.
So we can agree that at some point it's
not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as we can just get there.
Yeah, that helps.
That helps a lot,
Yeah.
right? But you hear about these, post. It's a really awful to think about. And I don't know if that's an extreme, if that's really happening.
Yeah.
In places, but right-wing media certainly.
Well, you hear it in that media.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the right side.
The media is the biggest problem that we have, I believe. Yeah.
They're the devil.
They're just.
Where do you get your news from?
I honestly, a few years ago, just about turned it off and decided I'm gonna take care of my family. I'm not gonna worry every day. It's not gonna change anything for me to worry.
It's almost better off before I got involved in politics.
Yeah, it's not gonna change anything for me to worry about it every day.
Yeah.
Some of my family that you know well, they listen to it on talk radio every day.
Yeah.
And have complained about it for as long as I can remember, and it hasn't changed one thing.
Changed a bit, yeah. That's
and so I just look at that as like, man, like what
you're giving energy to this thing that's
you're giving so much energy
back. Yeah.
so much energy to it. Like
Yeah.
every conversation we have is based around that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, at one point I was just like, I'm not going to do that anymore, and I'm gonna if I don't know that they're saying these things that get me fired up, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
And I know who I am. I know who God made me to be.
Yeah.
I know who my kids are. I want to spend time with them. I want to be happy.
Sure.
I don't want to worry all the time. And it's been great. And so I catch enough. Like I'll get on, whatever. I catch most of it probably from Facebook. Different people post different things, and that's probably where I see most of what goes on.
Okay.
I don't really go looking for it though.
Okay.
And I have strong opinions, but I really try hard, especially on social media, to just keep it to myself. I feel like my number one thing is love your neighbor as yourself. And if we all did that, all our problems would be fixed pretty much.
I love that attitude, to just kind of stay out of it. I feel like I have a responsibility to know something.
Yeah.
I don't want to be clueless. I want to be able to have a conversation on something, even if I'm not an expert on it. Just know enough. But it like you said, it's so much negativity.
Yeah.
Because it'll just rile you up. The stuff
It will.
Hear. And I also want to know what both sides are saying. So I'm trying to get both perspectives and see because the truth's usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
A little closer to the right, at least from my experience. But it is something I want to know. But it takes away so much energy. But what I don't understand is, even if you are politically engaged, I don't understand the social media need to just poke at people.
Yeah.
Like posting like the anti-Trump stuff, or posting the stuff about the Olympic opening ceremony or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking for a fight.
Yeah. It's just,
I don't understand the need to say, I'm going to go out in public and start something.
Yeah. Well, I keep harping on this, I guess, but from a Christian's standpoint, there's a lot of them doing that. A lot of people who call themselves Christians, and they're hating the other side on the right. And I don't disagree with their policies or anything.
Right.
But
it's the behavior.
You may have seen the comments on that post you're talking about. It was Christian friends of mine posting, again, kind of hammering me.
Honestly,
because I said that.
I didn't see the comments. No.
Yeah, and I didn't even a little bit. Yeah,
I thought it was beautiful. I like.
Thank you. Well, I didn't post anything political. Even
no,
I said my stance.
You said let's get along.
Yeah,
wasn't that basically what
pretty
you
much.
said?
And it was people from the church
Really?
hitting me with, you're not standing up. I mean, one of them said I didn't have a backbone. Like, dude, you have no clue who I am if you think I don't have a backbone. It's much harder to...
I would say you have a bigger backbone doing what you did than just joining the tribe.
Like, trying to see the other side, trying to reach out to them, trying to hear both sides, and not just
you don't even have to agree with the
that's
other
hard.
side.
Yeah.
Because I definitely lean more right.
Yeah.
But I also I agree with a few things on the left, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Am I willing to listen to you?
Yeah.
And are you willing to listen to me?
Yeah.
But this attitude of no forgiveness ever.
And just trying to hammer the other side. If you get something
Right.
on them, like, I'm hammering them, I'm just not going to do that.
But
And
that's
I don't.
an extremist thing to do.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
'Cause I had a conversation recently, and it was the Democrats are to blame for everything. And it's like, man, don't you think the Democrat-Republican thing is probably manipulated by something even higher?
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, these people can accept money from lobbyists.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, they use people to get elected, but they're funded by corporations and lobbyists.
Yeah.
These people are funding both sides because no matter what, you get to control one of them.
Yeah.
You're not going to just gamble on one of them. They don't care about these policies. They care about huge government contracts and banking and interest deals, things that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
You know, it gets so high.
It's a machine.
So none of us really know what's even going on.
Yeah.
We know what we're told. That's why I love podcasts so much.
Yeah.
Is even if they're wrong, they're at least coming from an honest place.
Yeah.
If you can find you were talking about a metal band that looked like you and dressed like you, and
Mhm.
that's what you relate to. That's how I feel with podcasters.
Yeah.
I'd much rather listen to Joe Rogan than Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
Even though I disagree with Rogan on a lot of things,
Yeah.
I relate to him more than this stodgy guy that's reading a teleprompter.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about progress that I think is really cool right now.
Yeah.
Is that we do have a lot more options.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is wild to me that you got some backlash on
Yeah,
that.
and it wasn't terrible. It was just, hey man, have you thought about this? And why, Jesus flipped tables in the temple when they were selling stuff, And I'm like, man, we're not talking about in church. Like if something was going on in the church, I think, it's okay to blast that. If it's wrong, if it's blatantly wrong, like, you blast it. But we're talking about the world being the world. They don't have the same beliefs I do.
Yeah.
And and I think at the time we were it was kind of what he was talking about was kind of based around the Olympics opening thing.
Yeah.
He's like, they just did this. He commented and posted a picture of it on my thread there.
Right.
And I'm like, man, they don't have the same beliefs as us. Like, I don't, obviously I don't agree with, if they're mocking Jesus.
That's not cool.
I don't agree.
Right. But I've also heard that they were trying to recreate a celebration of Dionysus.
Yeah.
And not mocking. I haven't done enough.
I've heard both sides. I've
heard them both, so I'm like, I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But regardless, I'm not going to go firing off.
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, that's right. If I'm not very easily offended, and Jesus wasn't very easily offended.
No.
He hung out
He
with
was hanging out with the rabble.
rough crowd.
The rough dudes, yeah.
The rough crowd, and he wasn't offended by all the things. He was offended by the religious people.
But just as somebody who did have a bad experience with religion growing up, that's exactly what it was. It was the people that said, this is the way, there's no room for error.
Yeah.
It's this type of person.
Yeah.
And people who wouldn't hang out with the rabble
Yeah.
saying this, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're too good for
Yeah.
people based on, I'm a Christian and therefore I'm better than you. And it's a really nasty, regardless of where you're coming from, it's a nasty way to think.
Well,
but that's not representative of all Christians by any means.
Well, it's not representative of Jesus. That's not who he was, and that's what I want to be. I'm his representative. That's exactly what I said in the post. I feel like I'm his representative, as imperfect as I am. He saved me years ago from the way I was living. It was not for him, and turned everything around for me. And so I'm loyal, and I'm going to give everything I can to that.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So you weren't just raised into it and just went along with it. You had an experience?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Sure.
I'd love to hear it.
You probably don't remember because it was a long time ago, and we weren't super close in age where you really knew everything I was doing in high school. But, man, I did it all,
Really?
Oh, yeah. I was, raised in, very very good home, and my parents were amazing and raised me right. But when I was a teenager, I decided I was going to figure things out for myself. And so, I tried everything, man.
Mom's side started kicking in a little bit?
Yeah. No, my mom was like a saint, but I smoked weed, and I drank, and I partied, and I did everything you can think of pretty much. I was gonna try it out and see how that went, and I had lots of friends that did the same thing, and some of them didn't get away from it completely. But when I was about 19 or 20, I was actually partying one night and went over to this girl's house, and she was married. She was in her early 20s. She's married to a guy. He was off on a hunting trip, and she was trying to get me to go back to her bedroom with her. And we were drunk, and I remember being like, no, I'm not doing that. I was sober enough to say, no, I'm not going to go that far with this. That dude would kill me. And I told her no, and dude, she went off on me. I mean, it was like the devil coming at me, like, you turned me down, get out of my house, called me every name in the book, and kicked me and my friends out. And wasn't that big of a deal, really, but I just left there thinking, like, what am I doing? I'm like, my parents taught me way different things than this, and they taught me, how you should live, and this is not it. I know that this is not it, and I've been trying this stuff out, and I'm empty. Like, I'm not happy from this. This was not fun, not fun at all. I was depressed about it, and I remember left there and took my friends home, and I remember sitting out sitting outside one of my friends' house after I dropped them off, and I didn't even feel like driving or anything. I just sit there and I was just like thinking about what had gone on and who have I become and what am I doing, and I don't know exactly the words I said, but I just told God, like, hey, I'm done with this, and I'm not going to do it anymore, and I want to live for you. I'll give my life to you. Like, just take away this nastiness inside me, and I'm not happy with. I'm depressed, and it's just not the life I want. And I mean, it was like immediate, like, weight lifted off of me. Totally different person from then on. I've never touched anything since then. Never wanted to. Like, obviously still, I'm a sinner. Like, obviously still have. Everybody's got something that, tries to get at them.
Sure.
Temptations, but so I'm not saying, oh, I'm perfect. I'm still I've still got that.
A human being.
Yeah, I've still got that personality, and I'm aggressive, and I'm still that. But spiritually, it changed me completely. Just saying those words that I'm living for you now, and actually, I mean, like, I really do. Like, everything I do, whether it's my business or my kids, how I'm raising them, or trying to help people that need help. If somebody calls me and they need something, like, he's put something in me that has a love for them, no matter who they are, and given me peace. And I don't feel, never had a depressed day probably since then, a real depressed day, so it's just.
Let me ask you about that. But I mean, you're still a human being. You're still going to go through ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you've got to have low points.
Yeah, but the low point now is like, oh, today sucked.
Not as bad as
today sucked a little bit.
Okay.
It wasn't a fun day, or I had had a tough conversation in business, or somebody's mad at me, or whatever. That's not the same as I'm purposefully going after all these things that I know that God doesn't think is the best for me. Just like we look at our kids and we can see them going after things that we're like, that's not good. That's going to hurt you.
Right.
It's not that I'm trying to keep you from having fun, but I know that's going to hurt you if you keep doing that. You keep chasing and running in front of a car, you're going to get hit,
Right.
And so that's what it is. And it just lifted everything off of me. I'm so free and light now.
This, though. Do you feel like you were saved, or do you feel like you saved yourself?
I was saved.
But you
absolutely.
But
you have to make the choice to.
But you've chosen to live in that path since then. You could have.
Correct. Yeah.
So at some point, you're equally responsible. Because I just plain devil's advocate. I'm sure there's somebody who could say, "I gave my life to Jesus, and and everything was great," and then the next week, I took a hit of weed or something, and then went down a path and can fall out with God.
Yeah.
Right. But their choices led them to fall. Right.
Yeah.
But you've made choices that have kept you on a path.
Yeah.
So I think there's accountability that goes into it too. It's not like you can just say, "Save me, God," and then make the bad decisions.
Man, that's a big argument in the Christian world of once saved, always saved, and that's a thing. And
yeah, tell me about this.
So it's kind of semantics for most people. It's like there's this side that says no, you can backslide, you can go away from God once you've chosen to follow Him, and then. But some would argue, well, you weren't really saved in the first place if you do that. Then it wasn't really authentic. You didn't really make that choice and commit your life, and that's why you went the other way.
Okay, I see that.
I don't know. There's going to be questions for God when we get there, for sure. None of us have that figured out. But I can tell you, for me, I've seen the dark side and I've seen the light, and I want the light every day over that, and one of my favorite Bible verses is the light shines in the darkness and the darkness is not overcome it. And it's talking about Jesus. And that's one of my life, themes I try to make. I want to shine in the darkness. If there's a place that, I don't want to be that guy that's just hanging out in church with your church friends and, acting holier than thou, and never talking to anybody that's different than me or anything like that. It's one reason I love POD. They go wherever. They played a show called Hellfest over in Europe.
It's over, yeah. I'm familiar with it.
One of my favorite.
Big metal.
One of my favorite all-time POD moments. They played Hellfest, and they've got a song called Murdered Love, and it's about Jesus being crucified. And they got up there and sang it in front of all these satanic people.
Yeah.
And it's unreal, to watch them do that, and the power that was coming out of Sonny in that moment. It's unreal, and that's
they're pretty
what
well
I want.
Accepted with that crowd, though.
They are, yeah. I mean,
that's cool.
It is. I think a lot of that is just it's a rock show and they're playing loud, and those people don't know exactly what they're saying. Maybe. It's loud. I know exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they're, but that's me, man. That's where I'm at. That's what I try to go after every day. Real estate's a tool for me that gets me to connect with people and have purpose in my job, and but really it all revolves around what I just told you. That's awesome. That's what I want to be.
I love it.
It's not because I'm some amazing saint. I'm not at all. It's just He did something in my life, turned it all around, and so I'm going to be grateful for it and tell others. It's like I told somebody the other day, it's like winning the lottery, and I can tell you, hey dude, go right over there, the lottery is right there, go win it. And instead of if I didn't care about people, I'd just keep it to myself and take the easy route, not talk about it, not ruffle any feathers, not risk somebody thinking I'm great, trying to be better than them, whatever. But I'm gonna blow all that off and not worry about that. And I'm just gonna keep saying what He did for me, because I want you to feel the same thing, that I feel.
But you're not out politically antagonizing people. There's a difference.
Correct. Yeah. I think it pushes people away, and it's just pushing them further from what I believe is the truth. It's pushing them away, because then they're just, I don't want to have anything to do with those Christians who are. But
you do understand why people who are not Christians perceive Christians that way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. That's why I'm not going to do it.
That's a great example of why the left or whoever needs to stop generalizing Christians, and we need to stop generalizing Democrats as being Satanists. We see the most extreme examples.
Yeah, true.
But in reality, not all Christians are hateful, intolerant people. Some of them want to, like what you were saying, if you just talk about
what Jesus was. I think it's become the church, and it's kind of been co-opted from Jesus and his message and his teachings.
Yeah.
Because I've never found any fault in any of the red letter kind of stuff. I mean, the teachings
there's no fault
are
in it.
solid, man.
Yeah, there's no fault.
They hold up.
Yeah.
However many years it's been, 2,000 plus. I mean, that is a hell of a message. But it's always mankind that screws everything up.
That's exactly right.
You know it?
Yep, that's exactly right. We're not representing actually what he did and what he said.
Right.
You know? So, just people.
So when are you starting the Gibson family band? Your little ones are 10.
I'm working on it. They're being trained right now.
So you got at least maybe a year or two before you need to start get the tour bus ready.
Yeah. We might need to do Gibson Durham.
We need a Gibson
to have
Durham.
the full thing.
We might need to team up. We need to do a jam. We can do it at your place.
Yeah.
He's going to want to play on a kit, so he might have to kick your boy off for a song or two.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, man, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Episode 35. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, man. It was really fun.
This was awesome.